Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Ambassador Spotlights. This is for July during our current 100-day challenge. And today I'm talking to Gina Schade. Gina is an amazing member of our community, a member of our ambassador board, and she's got a lot of, I know what IHP2 stands for, but you got a lot of letters next to your name. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the community for anyone who may not know who you are and kind of go over your credentials.
Yeah, sure. Well, like Rick said, my name is Gina Schade. I am an IHP2. I also am a certified health coach through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition and a certified life coach through the Life Purpose Institute. Um, Prior to my health coach training, I did work as a radiology technologist. So personally, I am married. I have two boys that are 8 and 9. We have a cat named Lucky and a new puppy who is about 5 months old named Moose. And we do a lot of adventuring as a family. We really like to hike and kayak and camp and things like that. And then professionally, I do have a private practice. I work mostly with busy moms over 40, supporting them with hormone balancing, gut rebalancing, and weight loss resistance. I do work with clients both virtually, and then also in person. I have a office locally where I live. So that's just a little bit about me, personally and professionally.
Awesome. Awesome. What type of dog? The
He's a
hard-hitting
black
questions here.
lab. He's so cute.
Sorry, say that again.
A black lab.
Oh, black lab.
Yeah,
Can't
he's
beat
so
can't beat
cute.
labs. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to make sure, I'm sure that's what everyone's going to be wondering when they're watching this. Um, how did you get your start in integrative health? So obviously, it sounds like you were more in the traditional health field, which is not uncommon in this community at all, really. But how did you make that transition, or what spurred you?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So yes, I started in the health field as a radiology technologist. So I worked in surgery, in the ER, inpatient, outpatient. Eventually went on to specialize in mammography and worked at the breast care center. And I think through that experience, I really began to realize that our healthcare system was really sick care, not really healthcare.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the work though. I mean, I loved helping people. I loved building relationships with patients, but I did feel like I wanted to play more of a role in helping people be healthy and really transforming really their lives. And so I had found this goes back about 13 years ago, I believe, 13 to 14 years ago. I decided to become certified as a health coach through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition, like I shared. And at that time, after becoming certified, I kind of took my hours at the hospital down to part time so I could start my business part time. And then as my health coaching business began to grow, then eventually I was able to leave the hospital setting and do my work full time, which was really exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I
That's the
just,
end goal that a lot of people never get to,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, so that was great. And then, for a long time, I felt like I was working with people on a lot of the foundations, like the nutrition and the lifestyle. And I would experience certain clients where they felt better with the foundations, but it wasn't quite getting them all the way to where their goals were. And I would get the sense of deeper imbalances in the body, kind of like we talk about through IHP. And I was beginning to refer some of these clients out to local integrative or functional practitioners in my area. And I was just really interested in everything that they were doing with these clients. And so eventually I thought, you know what? Why don't I get certified in labs so I can help
Yeah,
run kinds of tests on my clients, which is how I ended up finding IHP.
gotcha. Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, why just do a one-stop shop type of deal, right? If you already have your clients and working with them.
Yeah.
Um, what was the most important first step in starting your business, your health coaching business? Health coaching. I don't know if that's the right way to, you can correct me if that's not the right
No, that's
term
perfect.
for it, because I know
Yeah,
everyone's business is a little different, but what was like the most important first step in establishing that? It might maybe it's going and getting certified as an IHP so you can read the labs. I don't know, but
yeah. I honestly think because there's so many different things that could, that are important. But I just feel like the biggest thing is just not being afraid to share what you're doing with people. I think that it's natural to have fear around, doing something new and sharing with people that you're doing this new thing. Sometimes that imposter syndrome pops up. But it's kind of like that saying of feel the fear and do it anyways, and kind of recognizing you're probably never going to feel 100% comfortable, but you got to push yourself to share what you're doing. And I think back to like when I very first started my health coaching practice, I did a lot of in-person workshops at local fitness studios, things like that. But I think because so it's kind of like high level, don't be afraid to share what you're doing. But then I also feel like tangibles are really helpful. And so just thinking about other ambassadors who may be in that, like, I'm just starting my business position, I think one, just even some social media posts, with your degree and sharing that you graduated from IHP and this is who I can help and this is what I'm doing now. Like, that's a great first step. I think utilizing your network of family and friends is great, emailing people and just sharing like, hey, this is what I've been up to the past year, here's who I help, etc. Here's who I help, but here's the type of clients I'd like to work with. If you think of anybody, I'd be so appreciative of a referral. And then two, just like sharing in your community of like when you're going to the gym or you're at church or if you're talking with other like parents at the school pickup. I think just being proud and confident sharing what you do is really the first step. And it can look a few different ways, but kind of the theme of just being comfortable sharing.
Yeah, it sounds like making sure that you're sharing that you've established some credibility too. Between, okay, I got this certification, I've helped these people, establishing credibility so people know you're not just like doing whatever, or kind of talking where you're not supposed to be talking about, talking about things you're not supposed to be talking about or whatever it may be. Just, lending credibility to yourself sounds pretty important. And you might have covered it a little bit, but any like trepidations you had when you first started and how did you overcome those? I know you said to just kind of go for it, which I hear all the time because, the hardest part is getting started. So that's not uncommon at all. Not to say that it's not important advice every single time, but any other trepidations that you felt that you think is worth mentioning?
Yeah, I think two that stood out to me would be some fear, like some mindset things, which I'll share about, and then pricing. And with the mindset, I think my personal trepidation or fear, especially after being trained in the labs with IHP, was just, what if I don't know enough? Or like, what if I can't help somebody? And so I really, for myself, I try to put myself, like, ask myself the question, okay, well, what if you were working with a client and you really were confused on a lab or you had questions or you didn't know something? Well, it's like, one, go back to the IHP material, post in the Facebook group.
Yeah.
I with Becky Flack as a mentor in the beginning when I first got started. So it's like I could schedule time with her. And so I kind of realized like, even if these things do happen, there's a workaround. Like it's okay if you don't know something. I also think too, being surrounded by so many intelligent people, there's kind of that like, am I smart enough? Or like, I'm not the smartest person. And just reminding myself, like, you don't have to be the smartest person to help people make change. So that's something, kind of like that self-talk, trying to
Yeah.
talk with that. And then with pricing, I do think it's really common in the beginning for coaches to just be unsure about pricing and almost feel guilty for charging people because they want to help them so much. And, it's like I've spent time going round and round on what's the best pricing and the best offers. I think in the beginning, like I try to put myself in the client's shoes and say, if I were struggling with XYZ and I had somebody who was going to validate how I was feeling, help me navigate through the symptoms, know what type of testing is going to be the most useful in my case, know how to read the test, know how to put together a protocol, and then support me through that, would I be willing to pay somebody to do that? Of course,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, when you break it down that way, and you don't always think about it that way, it sounds easy, but you kind of, I think, have a tendency, everybody has a tendency to minimize all the work that they do and all the knowledge that they have. And then when you actually think about it systematically, like, oh yeah, I'm actually doing all this. And it
Yes.
makes it easier to justify, like, yeah, I should be charging for this. I'm doing a lot, actually.
It's
Um,
really.
yeah. And one of the things I think that you brought up is really important, and it's a little bit of a different answer that I've heard before when versus some of the other conversations I've had. But I think it's really important is that you do have a huge support group within the IHP community, within the ambassador community, and you can leverage that as an asset when you're first starting out and to help a little bit with your imposter syndrome, which I hear from basically everybody I talk to that they had to overcome some form of imposter syndrome. And like it's so true that like you can just if you're confused about something, you can ask a question in the group and you have this like community of folks that are more than willing to share their knowledge with you. Gina, we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, is that like the nice thing about the community is there's very little gatekeeping. There's
Mm.
not like, oh, well, I'm not telling everyone my secrets, like they can figure it out themselves. That's not the type of community we have because everybody is so focused on just helping as many people. So if they can help another practitioner help their clients, they're in turn helping more people, even if it's indirectly. So I think that's such an important thing that you brought up there. And I think that can be really helpful for people to know that it's not just on them to have all the answers. If something's unclear, if they're just starting out and they run into something, kind of uncommon with a client, you do have that support system and that community that can help you. And I think that's really valuable. And I think that's pretty unique to our community as well. Other education arms, you can just get certified and then you're done and you have your certification and you never interact with that company again. And that's really not the case here.
Well, that made me think of something else too, because I think about even in our training, we have so many resources and handouts to use with clients. And I've done other trainings where it's like you've had the modules and the education, but then there's not that end resource to make it easy. And it's kind of like, I don't want to say people are keeping, but that's kind of a little bit like, well, why wouldn't they like give us these resources? And so I do feel like having not only all of Dr. Cabral's knowledge in the modules, but then here's a whole library of resources that you can reference and use with clients.
Hmm.
Yes, I feel the community is awesome. I know when I talked to Jennifer in admissions before I enrolled, I said, what makes this program different? And she said the community. And you're kind of like, okay, we'll see.
The
Like,
cliche answer, but it is the truth in this case.
yes. And then
Yeah.
as part of the community for a few years now, I'm like, absolutely. And I think too, like when I first started, or even now, if I have questions, posting them in the group and everybody's so willing to help, then now that I'm not super seasoned, but a little more seasoned, now I like to go in and help other practitioners too that are just starting and share knowledge that I have. So it's kind of feel like it's full circle in the community.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, I mean it can't be overstated how important that community is and how much of an asset that is to especially to folks just starting out. And then like you said, a lot of times you pay it back by then going in there yourself once you have more experience in helping others, because most of the time it's not one of these transactional relationships where, another member of the community is like, yeah, I'll help you for X amount of dollars per hour. They'll just sit with you and help you in most cases. And the way you pay that back is that, you pay it back to other folks who are starting out once you are more comfortable. So it's really a unique situation, which makes the community really special. How did you go about expanding your client base and growing your business? And was there like a specific tool that you thought was most important? I know you touched on this a little bit about, talking to folks in all the third spaces, so to speak, whether it's church or the grocery store or parent pickup, but is there any more that you'd like to expand on with that?
That's a great question. I mean, like we talked about, I think first you just kind of got to rip the Band-Aid and get yourself out there. But then I think it's finding ways that you feel most comfortable consistently sharing education in your message. And for me personally, that has been the quarterly detoxes. I do have a podcast, the Whole You podcast, that I release an episode once a month, and
Awesome.
then an email newsletter once a month. I also try to do one educational reel on Instagram once a week. And that may not be as much as somebody else, but it's something that I feel like that's a cadence I can commit to and consistently show up for my people, my audience. But if I had to pick one, I would say the quarterly detoxes are a great way to expand and grow your business because it is something, it's a proven system. It's a complete program that's all ready for you. Clients do see quick wins from that. And then it's a really easy price point, and it's an easy yes for people to begin to work with you and learn more about what you're about. And then after quarterly detoxes, you can offer like one-on-one meetings with people to go through their results and just talk maybe if they want further support with supplementation or lab testing. So just feel like it's a really easy way to bring new people into your business.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I get that answer a lot. And it just it's just continues to be true that like the detox is such a quick win for people. Almost anyone can benefit from it, regardless of what state of health you're in. It's I do them quarterly as well. I'm just an employee. I'm not a health coach or anything. I mean I feel like I'm like half a health coach through osmosis, talking to so many folks, um, just over the years, but I technically don't have any kind of certification, but I do my quarterly detoxes. It has certainly helped me, and I try to be pretty consistent with that. Um, yeah, I mean, that's a great way to get started, and it's just so it's not a one size fits all, and that's something that we always emphasize that everybody's health is personal, right? But the detox is probably the closest thing to a one size fits all type of protocol that almost everybody can do and garner some benefit from. So I think that's a really good answer there. Um, what would have been helpful for you to know when you first started your business that you know now? Because like, it's always easy to look back like hindsight 2020 and been like, oh, if I only knew that, that would have been, so much easier for me.
Good question. I think it would be more of just having the mindset of like, you're just going to learn by doing. I think that and I tend to be more on a perfectionist side too, and wanting to kind of have all my ducks in a row. But I think people want to wait until their website is perfect or they have the perfect marketing brochure, or, something very specific where it's like your website's going to change 5 times. Like it's
Mhm.
final version. And so just kind of knowing, like, just like go ugly early is a saying I use a lot of just like get in there and do the thing and learn
Yeah.
while, and over time it will get easier and you'll kind of perfect your craft. So I don't know if that's a specific thing, but more of just kind of like a mindset of just like get your feet dirty, just get started.
Yeah, I like that. What was it?
Go ugly early.
Go ugly early. That's a good one. I mean, I've heard um the point of view of doing that, but I've never actually heard it summarized like in that like succinct way. I like that. Um, I know you did touch upon this as well a little bit before, as far as kind of spelling out, systematically everything you do to offer value as a way to help you justify charging folks for your services, financially. But, the reality is we're all basically everyone in this community is in it to help people and they're not in it to get rich. And quite frankly, if they were in it to get rich, they'd be doing something else that they get rich quicker at. You know what I mean? That's not the point. However, if you are running a business, especially someone like you who left their traditional career for this, you do need to run a financially viable business to be able to continue to help people and support yourself and your family. So, like, how do you balance the the financial aspect and making sure that your business is financially viable, but also like trying to help as many people as possible. How do you balance those two? Because that's a challenge I hear all the time people
Yeah,
express.
yeah, that's such a good question. And it's kind of like, I think I think of money as an energy, right? And as coaches, we are expending a lot of energy for people. We want to, but it is energy that we're giving out, whether it is holding the space to listen to somebody's story, like we had talked about earlier, understanding symptoms, making lab recommendations, reading the labs, putting together protocols, helping people implement the protocol, because information's one thing, but then as people try to implement, there's so many things that come up. And so I really view like my services as kind of an energetic gift or exchange to somebody. And on their end, they're exchanging energy in the form of money. And I think that people want to pay for that type of service with somebody that's going to help walk them through that, for somebody they know, like, and trust. And so I think it's just kind of understanding. I think sometimes, like, I don't know, not everybody, but I know sometimes money is hard to talk about. People feel bad charging, but it's really just like it's just an energetic exchange. We're offering value and they're offering us that in return. And so I think also, in terms of like the client buy-in, I mean, if you get something for free, how much attention do you pay to it, right? So I do feel that when people make an investment in their health with you, and they wouldn't invest their money with you if they didn't want to, they trust you to help walk them through a
Yeah,
process.
nobody's holding a gun to their head.
Right. And so when they invest in themselves and the labs and the coaching, they're much more likely to follow through and really see the transformation for themselves that we want for them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, I think it's something like I'll always have that conflict of like charging and, oh, like I just wish I could do it for free, but at the same time, we do need to be rewarded for our services, and um it is a business too. So, if we're not earning income, then we're not able to necessarily always provide for people in the same way, because we might have to go find work elsewhere. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think like the way you describe it as energy is I think that's a really it's a really like astute point you make because, the energy that you expend with your clients, there's only a finite amount of energy everybody has on a daily basis, weekly, whatever. It's a finite resource. You don't just have unlimited energy that you can just give out to everybody constantly, nonstop. So if you're giving a lot of energy to your clients and your work, it's you're taking some of that from your family and from maybe some other things in your life too, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. Everybody does it. Everybody works and has to, establish that balance. But to put it that way makes it kind of makes it more concrete that like, yeah, like this is a finite resource, like the energy that you have, and I'm investing a lot of it. So in exchange, I need to get some sort of other energy back, whether that be money or, feedback from clients or whatever it may be. So I think it's a really good way to look at it.
well, and I feel like too, thinking about coaching being sustainable for the long term and really making it a long-term career. Like we talked about, you do expend so much energy. And if you're not necessarily getting compensated for that, like resentment can creep in and things
Yeah.
like that. So I feel like when you feel as though you're being fairly compensated, then you continue to have the energy and feel like you can pour in to clients. So yeah, I think it's a common roadblock, but I think something that we all deal with, because at the heart of it is we just want to help people, but
Yeah.
also money is a business.
No, absolutely. And that's why I always ask the question because it's one of the things everybody brings up and it always comes from a good place. But, it's a relevant question because if you want to do this part-time, full-time, whatever, it has to be viable. You can't just be giving away things for free or, giving up so much of your time and energy for nothing in return. Especially like the benefits that your clients see are, sometimes are hard to be measured depending on, where they started in their health journey and where they are. So it doesn't, you do need some compensation for that. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit now, and I'm going to kind of talk about where, like, you have elevated yourself very quickly within this program, and it's not an uncommon thing to see. We do see every year we see folks all of a sudden come out of nowhere as ambassadors and really have a lot of success. And it's one of the things that we pride ourselves on the most about our program, that it's not a program where you need to be joined to it for 10 years to have any kind of traction or to get any kind of recognition. Um, not to say that it's easy to build a business and have instant success, because it isn't, and it requires a lot of hard work, as you and others know. But every year we see, and a lot of times you see it in the 100-day challenge, because I'm posting weekly leaderboards, and all of a sudden you see these people you've never even seen their name before, and they're generating thousands of dollars in revenue, and it's like that's amazing. Like, this person's just killing it. Um, and like, you were that person not too long ago. Now you're much more well established in the community. But like last year, I think you did crack the top 10, right, in the challenge. So you got the free trip to RHS, and I had a chance to meet you in person last year at RHS, which was great. Um, you have been named to our ambassador board as recognition for your growth and contributions to the community. So that's like a huge honor. And so like you have a well established status within this community now, which is great. So my question then becomes, like, you've done it and there's others that have done it. What would be your advice to someone looking to kind of hit the ground running and make that same kind of impact in a, not that it has to be so quick, but they don't want to sit around for 10 years, and they want to make an impact now and be a contributor to the community now. And from someone who's done it like yourself, what would you say, enabled you to do that?
Well, a great question and a few different thoughts. We talked a little bit about the consistency of showing up and educating your audience. I think that's huge. I think it's really important that you are a consistent face and presence for the people that follow you and that are wanting to learn from you. And, I think, and kind of almost like with a sales hat on, because, we are selling and selling, although I think of selling as serving, but like we're serving people through our products and our labs and our protocols. But I think that there's a stat, and I might not get it 100% correctly, but I think it's something along the lines of somebody has to have somewhere between 9 and 15 exposures to you before they would purchase from you or take advantage of your service. And so we live in a society that wants things instantly. And I think people give up before they get started. And so it's just kind of in the beginning of like, I'm going to show up. I don't care if I get 1 like, 0 like, 100 likes, just show up. Like that's the goal. So I think that piece of it is really important. But then I also think in terms of like the aspect of like, how are you serving people and making those sales so they're getting the amazing products and the labs and the protocols in their hand. And I think one of the things that I do really well is I keep track of every single conversation I have with people. So honestly, last night I was out to dinner with a group of girls, and somebody was talking to me about her son who is having like severe skin issues. His belly's always bloated. She's getting him tested for celiac. And it's like, I can help you. Like, I think we need to test his gut. So it's like I write that down that I had this conversation with this person. And so the first time I talk with somebody, it doesn't mean that they're going to be ready for a supplement or ready to dive into testing, but when there are those periodic times throughout the year that Equal Life has the lab sales or they have the really good sales on the supplements, I go back to my list and I just say like, I think it feels like a good time to check in with this person and just say like, how are you doing? Like, are you still struggling with this? Have you seen improvement? And I know we talked about this lab. It's actually on sale this week. If it's something you're considering, it might be a great time for it. So I think there is an element of learning how to serve people in that way and help them take the next step to getting the products and the labs in their hands. So I would say it's like the consistency, but also a little bit of the sales technique of being organized and keeping track of conversations and not being afraid to follow up with people. And I think like there's that fear of like, I don't want to bother people. I don't want somebody to feel like I'm being pushy or salesy. But so many times people are like, thank you so much for following up with me because we have IHP on the brain all the time, but they don't.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of like to kind of hit the ground running. I think it's a little bit of an art and a science, if you will.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's a phenomenal bit of advice. And it takes dedication and discipline to keep tabs on conversations you've had and look back and follow up.
Mhm.
Um, it sounds simple, but it does take some effort and some organization and some discipline to make sure that you're doing that and make sure that you're like not forgetting people or kind of just brushing aside a conversation you might have had. And that is in the client's eyes, that's really a concierge service where you're like, oh wow, she remembered when I was talking about like the issue my son was having. That was nice. And to your point about like, oh, I don't want to bother them. A lot of times clients are probably like, maybe I should reach out to her, but she's probably really busy. I don't want to bother her.
Yeah.
So by you reaching out, you kind of break that barrier. Like
Well,
just as much as you think about it, I think the client probably thinks that way too. That like, oh, she's too busy to deal with my thing is silly, whatever it may be.
like we just can play such a special role for people because we do go so much deeper than their traditional healthcare providers. And so it's like, if when is the last time your doctor sent you a private message or a text to say, "Hey, I just wanted to check in and see how you
Yeah.
doing?" So it's like I think it does make people feel special and kind of remembered of like, oh, like yeah, she paid attention, she cares about me.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, I mean, you go to the doctor and they barely even look up at you. And then, your health coach is sending you a text following up about a conversation you might have had a month ago. I mean, it feels like a unicorn in this current like health environment, where it's just it's almost you're almost like cattle. You're just brought into the office and check a few boxes and see you next year or whatever. Um, yeah, so it makes it even more impactful for people because they're so used to everything being so impersonal.
100%.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask you, how do you specifically use your ambassador commissions? Because obviously this is an ambassador spotlight, so it's a relevant question, but also it's interesting because I get a lot of different answers as to how people use their commissions because obviously like as a health coach you're probably building out your packages and you can correct me if you do it differently because everybody has a different business structure, but most folks are building out packages and offering labs with a consult, and it's like a whole encompassing package, and they get you available to them at certain times or a certain amount of times, whatever it may be. But the commissions you earn on the product sold, like how do you reinvest them in your business? Do you do something else with them? Like just wondering like how you use those commissions.
That's a great question. A few different ways. I do reinvest in continuing education quite often. I love learning. I will forever be a knowledge seeker. I think it's really when you're in this type of industry, I think to do to do justice to your clients, like you do need to continue to evolve and continue to learn. So I do like to reinvest in educational programs. But then I also use the commissions for platforms that I use to deliver free content and education to people. So, like for me personally, that is the podcast platform I use, Buzzsprout. I have an editor who helps me edit. I pay him. I utilize Flowdesk for my monthly emails, so I pay for my Flowdesk. So things where it's kind of like I do spend a lot of time educating at no cost. And so I kind of view those commissions as sort of payment for the time invested in just delivering free resources to people.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great answer. And I get that a lot. That the commissions are a great way to reinvest. So it's almost like found money, because you have your rates that you charge your clients to work with you, and then you have these like every month you have, oh, here are my commissions coming in, which, for someone like you and other folks who are doing well in the program aren't insignificant after a certain point. So that's great, and I think that's a really smart way to use that. Um, what have you enjoyed most about being an ambassador, and what perk about the program is your favorite?
Just the community, probably.
Yeah, just
Honestly,
access to the community.
just everyone's so amazing. I think going to RHS, that was my first time at RHS last year, and it really opened my eyes to how positive and amazing our community is. I got to meet so many people face to face, have really good conversations. Like we talked about, no gatekeeping. I mean, we were just sharing like how we structure our business and different continuing education programs we've done and obstacles we have with clients. It just felt really good to connect with everybody. So I think that's probably been the biggest perk is just having access to such a great support team. And it's really, it's like IHP, it's not just a program. It's not just online learning. It's really being part of a community. And I think that's my favorite part of it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And RHS is it's an eye-opening experience for everybody. I mean, I've been to three or four now, and every year it's amazing. And I meet like incredible people, and it is nice to get everyone in one place, and kind of exchange ideas and build that sense of community even more so than just, via social or something. Yeah, it's really nice. What piece of advice would you give someone who's just starting their business this year?
Hmm. So I feel like it's kind of some of the themes that we've talked through, but don't let perfection be the enemy of really good. Don't quit before you even start. The go ugly early, just gonna be messy, you're gonna make mistakes. Just start sharing, I think is truly just kind of the overall advice is and this is like something my dad always told me is if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And I don't ever want to like sugarcoat and say, oh, it's super easy to start a business because it does take a lot of work. You have to be uncomfortable. There's lots of growth edges, but like once you get past it and you just put yourself out there, you're so proud of yourself. And it's like things start happening and you don't ever look back. So I think it would just be like just start and know that you're going to make mistakes and it's going to be messy, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like it's always the hardest thing is just getting started, right? There's so much paralysis by an analysis by paralysis by analysis. I don't know. You know what I'm trying to say. Um, Before we go, Gina, and this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of your information and your knowledge. Is there anything else you'd want to share with the ambassador community before we go?
Oh, not necessarily, but I just was honored that you invited me on to do this. And I feel like I've gotten so much from all the other ambassadors that I felt lucky to be able to give back to everybody else. And if anybody does have questions for me or they are just starting their business, you're welcome to connect with me. Well, on Facebook, or I use Instagram more, but I'm at Holistic Health with Gina. So yeah, I think I'm glad to be here and it was fun to give back in this way.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that's a good point. I want you to plug where to be able to find you. So you mentioned Holistic Health with Gina on Facebook and Instagram. If you have a website, you can plug that. I know you said you have a podcast, a newsletter, anything else you want to plug and or not plug sounds crass, but where people can find you and learn more about you.
My website is ginashade.com and it's GINASCHADE. And then my podcast is the Whole You Podcast. I'm on Apple and Spotify. And then Instagram is where I like to hang out mostly.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much, Gina. This was a amazing conversation and it'll help a lot of people by watching it. So thank you again for your time.